My name is Stormy Rasco. On behalf of Athens State University, I'm going to discuss with you various models of instructional design. The models I am going to discuss are ADDIE, the SAM model, and the Dick and Carey model. I will describe each model, list the pros and cons, as well as compare the models. If you are familiar with instructional design, you've likely heard the term ADDIE. ADDIE is the most commonly used framework in the ID world. Stephen McGriff with Penn State University explains that this is because instructional design is the systematic approach to the analysis, design, development, implementation, and evaluation of learning materials and activities. During the analysis phase, we begin by identifying probable performance gaps. Tasks may include conducting a needs assessment, determining instructional goals, and completing a task analysis. Once this step is complete, we can move forward to the design phase. During this phase, we verify the desired performances and appropriate testing methods. It is during this phase that we also compose our objectives, plan instruction, and identify resources. Now, this is not to be confused with the development phase, in which we generate and validate learning resources. Tasks to be completed during this phase include generating our content, selecting appropriate media assets, and providing guidance for the learner and teacher. This is also the phase in which we will conduct pilot tests and formative revisions. Next, we enter into the implementation phase. It is during this phase that we apply our project to real-world context. Lastly, we enter into the evaluate phase. The tasks completed during this phase will determine the overall adequacy of instruction. One disadvantage of ADDIE is the linear sequence of the model. This may be restrictive when dealing with user-generated content or learning outcomes that do not have a predetermined end state. Recall to my previous slide which discussed the phases. I stated that the development phase should not be confused with the design phase. I said this because there is a radical separation of the design phase from the development and implementation phases. Once you reach this point in the overall design process, it's a little late to discover any major flaws, which would ultimately send you back to the drawing board. However, there is a reason that I said it is widely used in the ID world, and that's because it is extremely versatile. This model can be used to approach any type of learning event. Think of the ADDIE model as a cycle that gives you a logical, straightforward starting point. ADDIE and SAM are two different approaches that share a similar language. Now that we've discussed ADDIE, let's focus on SAM. As you can see by the diagram, SAM is a more concurrent system than ADDIE. SAM begins with a brainstorm, and then once everything is planned out, subsequent stages run simultaneously. Which brings us to the pros and cons of this model. SAM is a cyclical process, meaning that the repetitious nature of the model means that rapid prototyping is often the most essential step. According to Christopher Pappas with eLearning Industry, this drawback leaves less emphasis on the prep phase of the overall design process. However, its flexibility offers a lot of opportunities to communicate any changes or feedback, unlike the ADDIE model. Because revisions can be addressed immediately, the SAM model can guide you to building a successful course fast. Lastly, I would like to discuss the Dick and Carey model. This model uses a systems approach in which each part of the instructional design process is viewed as interrelated instead of being perceived as individual elements. Because of this, there are seemingly more steps to complete when working with this model compared to ADDIE or SAM. Another key difference is that the Dick and Carey model has evaluations throughout each phase of the model. This model would be a good choice if you needed to address a complex topic that requires extensive analysis. With this being said, one of the downfalls of this model is that it is time consuming. Because it takes the 5 steps in ADDIE and breaks them down into 10 steps, this model takes a lot of time and effort. Another downfall of this model is that it does not account for variables. Dan Lee gives a great example in his article. He states that a teacher could use this model to design an instructional unit, implement it, evaluate it, and revise it for the next school year. However, the teacher will now have a new group of students who will bring in different preconceived notions and prior knowledge. So what worked before may not work now. However, like SAM, this model offers flexibility. Because each phase is evaluated, this model allows for quick revisions if necessary. Another unique difference in the Dick and Carey model is that it supports the use of needs assessments and clear, measurable goals. Goals must first be established before implementing the design process. In conclusion, each of the three models discussed present instructional designers with advantages and disadvantages. However, each model is a well-established guide that offers designers with a customizable framework that can be used to meet the needs of learners.